We give thanks to the wrestling gods because TNA once again came into clutch and did not disappoint this week. TNA, you get a gold star. You did not disappoint me and Andrew this week. You are the best child this week. And I haven't even seen SmackDown yet, but I can already tell you, you are the best. Hi, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another exciting rendition of the Takedown Troop Review, your weekly TNA Wrestling review team. I am one of your hosts, Mikey, also known as El Jefe around the BC WrestlePod parts. I am the face that somewhat runs the place. I am the man with half a plan and all the other good stuff here. And joining me this week is one of my other co-hosts, Mr. A to Z himself, Andrew. It is a breath of fresh air to actually talk about something that didn't make me mad.
Absolutely. This was a fun night of wrestling for TNA.
It definitely was, and this also technically was the go-home show before Under Siege, which, spoiler alert, at the time of this recording, it's literally happening right now. So, the next 48 hours, me, Andrew, and our missing co-host, Will, who could not join us tonight, but will be there for the Under Siege review, we have the next 48 hours to watch that. And also, spoiler alert, I have double duty because I have to manage in 48 hours to watch Under Siege and WWE's Backlash pay-per-view too. Which actually shouldn't be bad. Only 5 matches on that one. It's going to be great. I'm pretty sure I know the winners, but this is the cool down one because then we get into the summer of hell with all the companies' pay-per-views. There's like 4 or 5 between June, July, and August. It's ridiculous. But before we get to the summer, we got to finish out the spring because this was the go-home show for TNA before Under Siege, which is TNA's final spring pay-per-view before we get into the summer of madness that is going to be TNA with Against All Odds and leading into the third Big Four pay-per-view of the year, Slammiversary. I love that we open TNA up after we get the introduction from our commentators. We see First Class and the squad up in the skybox waiting to see Joe Hendry's apology concert, which we'll get into later because I have so many good things to talk about that. I don't care what nobody says. But TNA this week opens up in a really fantastic non-title bout. Mustafa Ali taking on one half of ABC, Chris Bay. Like, Ali and Bay, like, they never can have a bad match. Like, holy crap. I'm like, can y'all just stop being so excellent in the ring? Oh my gosh, this match was amazing.
Yeah, this match, they're both so good, so phenomenal. This could have easily been a title match on a paper. Like, the two of these guys were incredible. I like that they gave us the information about how Santino set this match up. So then that way Ali also had a match in the same time span that his competitors will have had a match, so they're kind of on even footing. Because they kind of gave us that story tidbit. This was such a palate cleanser from what I had seen the rest of this week to start off the night, and it was just one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, this is what TNA is. This is what TNA does really well. It was just so good. So much fun, nonstop, and super entertaining. And Ali is that heel that, as much as he tries and all the trope he kind of plays into of our not too distant political turmoil that we've had going on and around, I still can't hate him because he's so good and so entertaining.
I love that they found a new way to find a distraction. Chris Bay got hit with the flagpole. That was hilarious. I was like, that's hilarious. I was so amazed with the fact that this was a 10.5-minute match and they managed to pull everything in. Like, the first attempt to the 450 into the cutter from Bay was amazing. And then, of course, Ali being able to do the second 450 to get the win here. This match did not disappoint me. And I'm like, yo, this is what Ali and Chris Bay are going to do. Imagine what we're getting at Under Siege with, spoiler alert, and we'll talk about that match a little bit later with who won that match. I'm like, there's a reason I like ABC as a tag team. What I also loved about this match too is because normally I'm not a big fan of like a lot of interferences when it comes to matches, but somehow this did not take away from the match itself. And in the context of the story that we're telling with Ali's character, it just made a lot of sense. Again, Chris Bay never has a bad match. Like, why has he not been in the main title picture yet? Or even X Division?
It's interesting because Ali, Ace, and Bay they're such a good tag team, and obviously they've become really good friends, and they work so well together. I think it could Motor City Machine Gun thing or a New Day thing or whatever you want to call it, and let them step away from the tag team titles for a little while and let them go after some singles titles because they are so good separately, and it would just give them a fresh little start. Yeah, Chris Bay and Ace Austin really they could go to anywhere and just be phenomenal stars, and I think was lucky to have them here in TNA.
I 100% agree with you. This was a fun opening main event. And it really kind of set the precedent for how it would feel throughout the whole entire night. So we leave this match to get straight into our second one, which was Dani Luna versus Alicia Edwards. This was a very short match. This only clocked in at 3.5 minutes. And I wasn't mad at it? Question mark. So obviously this was still from the post-Rebellion tapings because we had Lars Fredrickson on commentary. So I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. They taped lots of things during their Fallout show after Rebellion, which is cool and everything. I really liked that Alicia continues to play this. She just plays a heel so much. It's fun to watch her play a heel with running interference and whatnot. But getting into the middle rope throat first, I was just like, yikes. And then, of course, Masha Slamovich just kicking people's heads in. I'm just like, okay, this makes me excited for what we're getting at Under Siege. But because of the distraction, Masha's able to kick Dani Luna in the head to take the pin in a 3.5 minute match. I wasn't mad at it.
No, I mean, I think this match did what it needed to do. And then you see Dani Luna against Alicia, and I mean, she could have just snapped Alicia in half if she wanted to. The size difference is crazy. And so they played into that really well. They played into what really makes Alicia dangerous, which is her, her cunning and intelligence. And she used her tag team partner very wisely, which I think will be a big part of the story going forward, her using her tag team partner. So I'm interested to see how they flow as a tag team. I kind of actually, expected it to go this way, especially because both partners were out there. It makes sense that if someone's going to be able to take advantage of, shenanigans, it's usually going to be the heels. And the system has shown that they're really good at that. But yeah, it was a fun, quick match. I think even in getting kind of, I don't want to say outsmarted, but kind of manipulated, Dani still looked super strong. And Lars did say that, after what happened, he's going to be there at Under Siege. So we might get to see some more of him at that pay-per-view too.
Yeah. Again, this makes me excited for, Under Siege. I do like the addition of Alicia and Masha because I wasn't sure how I would feel about them potentially being in the Knockouts tag team division, but this match, as short as it was like, oh yeah, this adds a different dynamic. This is a good way to keep Masha on television until Killer Kelly comes back from her vacation hiatus. Break from the wrestling business, which is totally okay with me. So then we get into Death Machine TV, hosted by Sami Callihan. And on this first episode, he announces that he has a TV show. End of first episode. I know a lot of people have their ups and downs with Sami Callihan, but I'm really happy to see him back in TNA because we do need that craziness, if you will, to TNA, because I feel that I need him and Matt Hardy to do something together to see who could out crazy the other. But I am happy to see a staple of TNA come back, the Death Machine, Sami Callihan, and I'm excited to see where Death Machine TV goes. So this is a fun little segment, and it was great.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting way to cut promos for Sami. Makes him kind of a little crazy, a little unstable, and I think it just gives you the idea of who he is in a very short amount.
Death Machine TV gives me early 2005 YouTube conspiracy theories channels. I was just very shoddily shot, quick 2-minute video uploaded to YouTube, gets thousands of likes. It's a lot of fun to watch. But that fun time kept rolling into what I thought on paper was going to be kind of trash. And it actually made me smile at the end of it because we get Cody Deaner versus Hammerstone. So originally this was slated to be a singles match. Before the match even started though, Deaner and Hammerstone are in the ring and they cut a promo on each other. And I was like, I forgot that Hammerstone is now more leaned out. I was just like, I'm still not used to him being Stretch Armstrong. Like, I was just like, it was nuts. But Diener, is playing up his, people's choice gimmick of a character, and basically tells Hammerstone that Santino gave him the ability to add a stipulation. He gives a couple ideas, but ultimately the crowd decides that Diener and Hammerstone should have a Sin City street fight, which then warmed my little heart. I was like, we're about to see violence, aren't we? And sure enough, we did. Even though it was a little bit tamer than what we've seen, of the fast few street fights, especially the Rebellion Full Metal Mayhem match at the ending of that crazy shenanigans of, nothing crazy, just Eric Young popping a whole ear off. It's wild.
Yeah, it was. I think this was probably the most interesting use of Dino's new gimmick so far, and maybe it was just the way it interacted with the match and everything. It was just it was quick enough and still fun enough that it made it interesting, and it was a really fun match to get on the weekly show. Like, I think the fact that it was a weekly show, it was a match in the middle of the show. It's not a big title or big main event match. We got as much violence as we were going to get in it, but it enabled Diener to it gave him, a handicap to be able to keep up with Hammerstone, who, if this was a singles, standard regular match, would have just got tossed around by Hammerstone. And Diener plays a really good underdog. He was basically fighting an uphill battle the entire time, but he plays a really good character that you want to see him kind of be the everyman that kind of overcomes these stars. And it gave us a chance to see Hammerstone go through a guy, outside of, between Josh Alexander and Jake something, who are gonna be more on equal footing with him. So I thought it was a fun match for what they did, and I appreciate, TNA putting on a street fight style match on a weekly show. It was awesome.
Heck yeah, it goes to show we don't need to always save it for the PLEs and the PPVs. I still think the torture rack, I hate the finisher, but you know what? I can let it go because I was thoroughly entertained with this match, and I liked what happened afterwards because Diener kept getting in the torture rack. Hammerstone wouldn't let him go after the match, which then allowed Jake something to come in and nail Hammerstone. I'm like, damn! I was like, Jake and Diener are like the team I never knew I wanted. Just like Jake and Bailey on the Indies as a tag team I didn't know I wanted. But it does set up what we're getting at Under Siege between Jake and Hammerstone, so it makes me excited to see that match. It's going to be a fun time. So then TNA decided to be like, hey, so we kind of released this as a digital exclusive on the social medias, but we're going to replay it here so all you TV people who are not on social media can figure out why we changed a certain person out of a certain match for Under Siege. And TNA, I want to say thank you, because you're like, okay, the wrestling fans are going to go on the social medias, but maybe the casual person wouldn't. So let's review. So we get basically, if you haven't seen the video that was released on Twitter exclusively, which then made its way to Instagram a couple hours later, we see the fallout of what happened last week after Nick Nemeth and Eddie Edwards' match, in which the system attacked Nick Nemeth. There was a chair on the neck situation. It's kind of wild. So here in this video, we get the medical doctor telling us that Nick Nemeth is not cleared to compete Under Siege, so they're going to need to find a replacement. And who should be around to take up Nick Nemeth's spot but Broken Matt Hardy? So this is where we get the official announcement that it would be Broken Matt Hardy, Senior 7, and the Speed of Ball, according to Broken Matt Hardy, who will take on the system at Under Siege. I already love it. Senior 7 and the Speed of Ball.
I have them down as Broke Ball Mountain.
Yes! I swear, if that is not their official tag team name at Under Siege, I might actually be upset. I mean, there's not much to discuss. Me, you, and Will, all three of us saw the Instagram and the Twitter video, but it's nice that they're like, hey, so this is the reason in kayfabe why we are not having Nick face. Also, spoiler alert, Nick is kind of competing in some New Japan shows this upcoming weekend and defending titles, so that's great. Also, shout out to Nick Nemeth for being the new AAA champion. Let's get this belt collector gimmick again. I love it. So here's hoping that we can see more of Broke Ball Mountain down the line. Okay, so then we get into another favorite segment of mine. Jonathan Gresham is just sitting by himself in a chair. Santino comes up, and the audio gets played with because it goes in and out of Santino talking to Jonathan Gresham as if like a bang grenade hit and it was all over the place. So Santino sits with Jonathan, welcomes him back, says, "Hey, I'm glad you're here," all the good stuff. They shake hands, Santino leaves, and then we are left with the side-by-side of Jonathan Gresham with his counterpart wearing the octopus mask, and then it ultimately replaces him. I'm like, give me more! I love this new gimmick for Jonathan Gresham. Holy
And
crap.
I love these cinematic promos that they're cutting. I mean, I don't know if it started right around the time that I started watching Impact again, but they've been doing these so well, and I think the fact that they do pre-record their shows gives them time to do some extra recording, edit things in, clean them up, and put them in there. But they've done phenomenal work with a lot of these, and what they did with Jonathan Gresham's package so far, I mean, that Lick Clean Way, has been phenomenal. So I'm like, it's got me so hyped for him to come back and see what he's going to be like and what's going to happen with it. I liked a little bit about when Santino shook his hand, he got the ink on his hand, and just like how it just makes me feel like he's going to be this presence in TNA.
Oh, so absolutely. I hope that the ink is kind of like a calling card for Jonathan Gresham, like you have been marked for execution or something, which would be fantastic. But now seeing this makes me even more excited for what is going to happen because, spoiler alert, after the show went off the air, I scoured the social medias and found out we had like more matches added to Under Siege out of nowhere. And one of them is Gresham versus Kushida. And I'm just like, I literally had to do a spit take. I was just drinking water. I'm like, oh my gosh, this match is going to ball because both of them are fantastic wrestlers. But I'm more excited to see how this new character translates in a wrestling match. So now I'm even more excited about Under Siege. Dang it, TNA, you cannot make me excited for pay-per-views. Don't you know the rule is to disappoint your fans on the go-home show? So that way the bar is low for the pay-per-view? But y'all got me hyped. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome match.
Yes, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be awesome. But speaking of awesome things, don't care what nobody says. This is the best thing in wrestling television. We finally get to the Joe Hendry concert, Andrew. And I was ready. I had the glow stick going. I had everything ready. So we cut to First Class in the Skybox, and they introduced Joe Hendry for the in-ring apology concert. I'm so mad that Will's not here because I was just like, ooh, Joe Hendry can play guitar. That's kind of hot. Like, I was like, whoa, hold up.
Yeah, he's a full-on musician. Like when he was, he's a chart-topping musician too, by the way.
Yes, in the UK, he dethroned Hozier and Taylor Swift. So good on you, Joe Hendry. UK fans knows what's up.
And I think he was like, he was top in the UK. He was like, I forget where he was in the United States, but he was in some high places, especially for being the theme music for a professional wrestler. But in that time, he also was doing concerts and stuff like that. So he's a full-on musician, and it was great. It's so entertaining.
I want to break this down because we had a whole entire 3-set piece with this whole segment. And the fact that TNA allowed this to go for as long as it did makes me love TNA even more because I feel like other promotions be like, all right, we got to cut this for time. Like, let's not do this. I was like, this is what Elias wished he was. But anyways, so we get the first song, which is basically a rehash of the song we heard at Hard to Kill, which was a nice callback for those of us who have been following the story since then. Then we get the second song, which focuses on AJ Francis's ineptness with dives in the ring. And then Joe Hendry decided to go for the knockout punch because then in the tune of Higher by freaking Creed of all things, he does the Creed-inspired song about how AJ Francis needs to get fired. And then he finally says, sorry. That's how he ends the concert. And then the fans are in love with Joe Hendry as this concert comes to an end. This is the best segment ever. I don't care what anyone says. Like, this is goofy, this is stupid, but this is what wrestling needs.
Well, and it's fun too because it takes a talent that a performer has outside of what they, use for their gimmick and stuff like that, and enables them to really explore that and use it in a way that progresses their character. Because he's so funny and does it so well and so casually that it's just you can't help but enjoy it. Yeah, this was so good. My only note for this was amazing because I just had so much fun watching it. I was like, I can't even. It was just great.
This was fantastic. We here at BC WrestlePod, now a music publication for one night only, we rate this concert as a 10 out of 10. This was fantastic, and I love goofy and campiness in wrestling. And what speaks volumes to me too is that TNA trusts the vision that Joe Hendry has for his character and his gimmick to allow him to do this for like a 15-minute segment, might I add. And it just also goes to show that how much the audience is in tune with the TNA product and loves TNA, because they were so behind Joe Hendry the whole entire way, and they didn't. This could have gone bad. They could have hijacked the show, but they did not, which I appreciate about TNA. TNA fans seem to be less inclined to try to hijack and go into business for themselves and just truly enjoy what they're watching, which is fantastic. And then they just decided to crank up the adrenaline to 15,000, because then we get this also baller match, Trey Miguel versus Ace Austin. I already knew on paper this match was going to be fantastic, and they did not disappoint me. And then by the end of it, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I think they just topped themselves the last time these two faced each other. I'm like, hot damn, you guys. I was like, how do you guys keep just blowing my mind even more every time? But this had some stakes to it, because this was for the #1 contendership. The winner would go on to Under Siege to face Mustafa Ali for the X Division Championship. I mean, this is just acrobatic dudes doing acrobatic dude stuff. This was a great match.
Yeah, I mean, as always, these two have really good matches. I mean, it's the four of them are some of the best, wrestlers in TNA, especially when you look at the match that they just had, with Leon Edwards joining ABC and Myron Reed with the Rascals. Like, I mean, the six of them just put on an amazing match. For anyone else, this would have been an incredible match. This would have been like top match of their kind of careers, but I think I'm starting to reach my level of fatigue with the Rascals and the ABC. And I think part of that is because we saw them for so long feuding over the tag team titles. And in amongst that, we also saw them wrestle in singles matches of every mixture that we could see. We saw them wrestle in six-man matches with Eric Young and Steve Macklin. And so we've seen the Rascals and ABC face off against each other so much, and it's not a knock against them, because, again, this match was excellent. But I think it's saying more of, we need more tag teams in the tag team division so we can see these two teams do what they do against other teams. Or we need to see them do more singles competitions against other competitors. So, the fact that Trey Miguel and Ace Austin are competing for the X Division title, you go to, like you said, Chris Bay. I think you could easily throw Chris Bay and, honestly, Trey Miguel into that world title picture. I don't see any reason you couldn't put them in there for the digital media title. So there's a lot of options and people like that we could see them wrestle against. I mean, seeing them wrestle against tosses like Jake Something, Hammerstone, even PCO, like, there's just so many things that we could see them do that would be different. And I'd like to see that, because they deserve to have more variety to what they're doing. But with what they have to work with and what's there available to them, they kill it every time.
This is a phenomenal match, and kind of like the opener, these are just two guys who are very good at the craft. And on top of that too, we set this during Rebellion, during our watch along when we were watching this. Trey, all the Rascals and ABC, they're all under the age of 30. Like, they're all still in their 20s. Like, these kids are crazy out here of how well they are as wrestlers, and this was such a good match. So we get a quick segment from Josh Alexander and Eric Young talking about how they're ready for Frankie and Steve Macklin at Under Siege. I think this is going to be a fun match. I think it's going to be great. Which then leads into commentary running down Under Siege for us. And then we get into our main event. Once again, women's wrestling is just main eventing between ROH and TNA this week. And this is a Knockouts title championship match. So the Knockouts World Championship is on the line in this match. Jordynne Grace defending her title against a returning Miyu Yamashita. Look, anytime we see Japanese wrestlers in TNA, I was like, oh, they're about to slap each other silly. And this was a fun one. I'm happy to see Miu back in TNA. Now, this is probably where we get a little bit of flack. I think the match itself was fantastic. My only issue with it, and this has nothing to do with the performers, it's just the overall booking. It's kind of relevant to that we're kind of running out of viable challengers for Jordan. And I think we said this during the Rebellion review too, because Steph was a fantastic short program, and we're still getting Steph involved in the storyline. But we're kind of running out of challengers for Jordan with who she had, because she's pretty much beaten almost every single knockout in the singles division, which means to tell me I think Ash is next in line. That's the only logical thing I can think of. And honestly, I'd be kind of here for Ash and Jordan fighting it out for the title. But if Jordan beats Ash, then who's left? And again, not a knock on the talent, but more so booking. I'm like, I love Juggernaut Jordan Grace, but you're kind of having the same problem some other company are, where you're running your champion through all the contenders, and then we have nobody left as a viable contender.
Yeah, they need more depth in all their divisions. I mean, I appreciate the fact that they use everyone that they have as well and as much as they can. But like, we got Ash by Elegance, and then on the men's side, we got Nick Nemeth, Mike Santana, we got Mustafa Ali. For at least a little while, we got Broken Matt Hardy. So we're getting a lot of these male wrestlers that are coming short term and long term. You know, even the people we got like Zaya Brookside and Danny Luna. I mean, Danny Luna was pretty much already there. She just got a permanent signing. Zaya came in, but I feel like she's still fresh enough that she's not really going to be too much in that title picture, at least viably. We need to bring in some name people or some like experienced people to be staples in like the women's, both the knockouts divisions, the knockouts world title and the knockouts tag team title, because yeah, it is a super shallow division, and it's a bummer because this run for Jordan as the champion could be a really great one. I kind of wish we wouldn't have gotten this match. I'm sure it just had to do with where people were and when they were available and stuff like that. But it's like I almost would have rather seen this Under Siege as just like another another title match. And, book it as like it's a special thing. We brought in a special challenger who wants a shot at Jordan Grace's title. Or have it later on. Spread out these big challengers coming in, especially if we're going to continue to work with Steph. But if we're going to bring these people in, we need to have some build and play into it to where it doesn't feel like we're constantly like, well, who's she going to face now? Well, who's she going to face now? And I would really like to see some depth actually built in TNA, especially in that division. And just overall, I like that they've minimized a lot of stuff to make it stronger, but now we need to start putting depth into the structure.
100% agreed. And to kind of add to that too, as I was listening you talk about the depth of the knockouts division and kind of start signing some more knockouts to the division, I thought about it, I was like, you know who I would love to see come back now that she's no longer part of AEW? Bring the Bunny back to TNA. Like, we need to remember that Bunny did amazing things in TNA. She had one of my all-time favorite feuds when she went against Su Yeon, during that whole weird storyline after, the Bunny and Rosemary were like odd friends at some point. Yeah. I love that storyline. Or, even though she's technically under the company, if we wanted to, beg, borrow, and steal, I would love to see Penelope Ford make a pop-up in TNA. Like, there's just so much women across, all the brands. And we know that AEW is not afraid to, let the women go to other companies for a little bit. There's also, you have this partnership with AAA. Let's get some of the girls from AAA. Let's get Sexy Star too. Like, let's get a bunch of people, unless we're saving for a Forbidden Door, according to the rumors I heard, that TNA might be doing a Forbidden Door S type of pay-per-view with AAA, which would make me super excited. But, again, we need more depth in the Knockouts division. We have so many talented women in this division, but we do need to kind of spread it out. But as far as the match goes itself, like I said, I thought this was a fantastic main event. The spinning kick from Mashita to Grace for the 2 looked violent as all heck. I was like, yep, there's that Japanese strong style right there. And then, of course, I love Jordan Grace's Juggernaut Driver finisher. It's one of my favorite things to watch. This was a fun match. And then I liked what happened afterwards, because then we're setting this up for, our mixed tag team match with PCO and Jordan and Khan and Steph at Under Siege. Because then they brawl and then, are staring down at each other as surprisingly TNA goes off the air this week. I'm like, what? It's over? No, don't leave me, TNA. I need more.
Yeah, I do.
Damn it.
I love what they've done with Jordan and her last few opponents, like Steph and Yamashita, like both really gave her a challenge. Like she had to face adversity against both of them. It was fun seeing Jordan face someone with that Japanese style, and it was awesome to see Yamashita in the way that she looked, both in her style, but then also dealing with Jordan's power, because there's not a lot of women built like Jordan, and so it was cool to see the dynamic of the two of them. But I've enjoyed it. Like, Steph was able to overpower Jordan, and Yamashita was able to outstrike her and use her different styles to come over that. So that part of it was really cool, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. This was probably tied for my match of the night, maybe coming in at a really, really close second. But the style of the two of them just made this match super entertaining, and the only way I think it would have been better had we actually had it at a pay-per-view where maybe would have gotten a little more time and a little more gravitas to it, would have had a little bit more oomph to it. But as a main event for a weekly episode, it was awesome. They used the end of it to tie in the upcoming match, which was great to get us excited for that. So the one thing that I hope we get to see pay off is I hope we get to see PCO eventually pay off on the choke slamming Steph DeLander, because he's set it up multiple times now and he hasn't gone through with it. And we all know that Steph will take a choke slam or a hit like that. She's not a delicate flower that can't handle that kind of stuff. So I hope we get to see the payoff on that. But yeah, it's got me excited for Under Siege.
Oh, I am so ready for Under Siege. I think it's going to be fantastic pay-per-view, and I can't wait to watch it somewhere in the next 48 hours between that and Backlash. But Andrew, we've reached the end of TNA, so we got to give this a rating. I'm going to go first. A little bit of this score, it comes from the fact that everything else has been kind of mid as far as everything else, but honestly, I do not care. I am an internet personality now, and I no longer care about the opinions of people. I'm just kidding. Please leave nice comments for us. We want to grow this thing. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 for me this week for TNA. I thought this was a solid show. This was a fun go-home show. And funny enough, they were able to kind of finish out the path to Rebellion with these tapings while also getting us prepared for that quick 2-week turnaround TNA loves to do between pay-per-views sometimes. Get us ready for Under Siege. And honestly, I'm really excited for Under Siege. Again, my critiques mostly come from, the horrible torture rack finisher is still not my favorite. But also because we're starting to see that we're stretching certain divisions, to the thin layers that are left of it. So I'm hoping that if not at Under Siege, I'm hoping leading into Against All Odds and Slammiversary, we can either start signing more talent or getting some people to do some short-term stuff here. Especially with Slammiversary being the big summer pay-per-view for TNA. Because lest we forget, Slammiversary is where Naomi made her name last year when, during her matches there. But I give this an 8 out of 10. I thought this was a fun show. This is a solid show. And I look forward to see other wrestling companies. I look forward to watching the pay-per-view. I can't wait for Under Siege.
I give this an 8.5. It wasn't mind-blowing. I wasn't like, oh my god, this is something you can't miss. But it was an excellent episode, especially with it being a go-home show for a pay-per-view that's essentially the next night. And just 2 weeks after the last pay-per-view. the fact that they set that all, like they set up this next pay-per-view in 2 weeks, I think it did a really great job. I think TNA just needs to keep on doing what they're doing with what they have, and then just let everyone else be their own worst enemy. You know, for the most part, they're staying out of all the other crap that's going on between other companies. They're staying away from the things that are causing problems for the other companies. And they're doing really great work and putting out a great product. So keep doing what you're doing, TNA.
Seriously, TNA, thank you so much for being the highlight of my week. And I can go into this weekend of pay-per-views happy because there's no Collision and Rampage got covered with Dynamite this week. So now I can just focus on the pay-per-views. And that's exactly where Andrew, myself, and Will be this upcoming weekend. So if you stuck around long enough, thank you so much for tuning into this Takedown Trip review for TNA Wrestling. You can find all three TNA boys covering the Under Siege pay-per-view review this upcoming weekend. So stay tuned for the socials for the announcement of what time said review is going to be. But me and Andrew are going to get up on out of here because surprisingly, we're done a little bit earlier than we normally are, which I'm not going to complain about, especially as someone who has to edit 2 reviews in one night. But for myself and Andrew, Will, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod hosts, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, but more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will see you for the TNA Under Siege review and the Backlash review in the next couple of days. But until then, ta-ta for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's going to happen next time? Well, you're going to have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.